This is the Frontline Focus Podcast, an experiment dedicated to those on the front line of construction project sites, focusing on their development as the key to the construction industry's progress. This is Season 3. Our focus will be on the business of well-being, why safety is a strategic advantage. In each episode, we will talk with a construction industry professional to hear their thoughts on how to shift the frontline focus on improving the well-being for all workers. All right. It is podcast time again. We're on an incredible journey. We're finding so many new people to talk to about safety, construction, different sides of the border. It's a good time to be in podcasting, I will tell you that. Gabe, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing good, Rob. It's it's almost May. So exciting. Spring's here, sunny in BC, Vancouver. I might even drop everything. I was talking to somebody. I talked to my wife just before this. I'm like, hey, I think I might just go surfing tomorrow and go to Tofino and work from there. I haven't been surfing in like a year and a half, and I just need to go. So I might just do that. So I'm pretty excited.
You should do that. And I got to tell you, the more conversations you and I have, and as we bring on different people from across the U.S. and Canada, it is always interesting to have the weather comment because, arguably I live in the deep south of the U.S. It doesn't get real cold here. It rains a lot, but it doesn't get cold. So let's check in on some weather on a different part of Canada. Today we're joined by a new person. We are with Craig LeSurf. How are you today, sir?
Excellent, Rob. Excellent.
Hey, thank you for taking some time to join us. So let's get your weather check in. What's it looking like in your general area?
Well, we got some big weather system moving through, so it's supposed to look nasty with some storm thunderclouds, but I'm hoping for it's not too bad. It's supposed to be nice for the weekend. I'm gonna finish putting my docks in. I put them in my cottage, and I'm now gonna hopefully not freeze everything off when I go in. Last time was a little cold. The ice was out for a week, so I decided to brave it and get it done.
Almost cottage season out there. Hey, like some people that are listening are kind of all over North America. It's funny. One of the things that's different between East and Western Canada, we call them cabins. You call them cottages, right?
Correct. That's right.
And another thing for people that are just listening and not or watching the video, Craig has on his Maple Leafs jersey right now. And so because he's doing that, I figured I gotta sport my team, not to create conflict in the podcast, but I'm just gonna throw this on.
Well, I'm just gonna give context to the comment there because tonight is Game 5 of the first round. Game 5 of the playoffs, and what round are the Canucks in?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm just saying.
Fair enough. Well, I guess I provoked it.
Yeah, I'm leaving this podcast and I'm hopping in an Uber straight downtown to the game tonight. And I'm looking forward to a very exciting game.
No, it's good. The thing that I'm not happy the Canucks are not in the playoffs, but I am happy. I'm very happy that we have almost all the Canadian teams in the playoffs, except for Calgary and Vancouver, right?
Yeah.
So it's exciting. But diving into a few things, Craig, you're a bit of a legend in the safety space. When I first started coming into Ontario with Salus, my construction background's in Vancouver and Canada or BC and Alberta. I heard so much about you. You've done so many incredible things in the safety community, but your background is not safety. Your background, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is like project management and then and moving up to president of businesses in construction. So maybe let's start with, tell us about your background. When and how did it shift to this focus around health and safety?
Well, good question. I started in the business over 40 years ago. Back in the late 80s there, graduated at Ryerson. I moved around for a few different companies. And, I've always been cognizant of safety and trying to make sure that people get safe. I've seen people get hurt on the job site and it's not good. And then, as I moved through from lower management into middle management and upper management, I thought, you know what? I have an ability to shape the outcome of this. And, I remember I would be all over safety. I remember tossing guys off the job site because they didn't do what I asked, which was, they were on a scaffolding beside a 4-story atrium with no rail, but they're standing on a baker scaffolding, that's within the legal height, but the fall isn't legal height.
Right.
And I yelled, my superintendent, I go, you tell him to get down. So he did. The guy kept going. Well, he goes, oh, I'm almost done. And I remember yelling in the building at the guy, and I said, you're down now. And everybody heard me because I used my outdoor voice. And after that, no one went near me. They were all scared. And I kicked them off the job site right down there on the spot. I said, when he tells you to get down, you get down now. And that was sort of a watershed moment that I realized that I was very passionate about it. And, and then I got promoted up into be, VP, senior PM, and then VP ops, and then senior VP. And I started getting involved back at different companies. And I got involved through the OGCA, Ontario General Contractors Association. And, I joined the board maybe 13 years ago. And the first thing they said was, hey, we got the safety committee. Why don't you take it? And they were trying to palm it off. And I'm going, all right, this is perfect. And so I jumped all over that and took on the safety committee and, chaired it. And it became the most active committee within the group. Certainly the board reports were the longest. Right now we have 75 members on the committee, which is only possible because we're doing it by a virtual now. It became an advocacy group with the Ontario government, and we got known to do it, and we did a lot of things. And, we're going to talk a bit about what the League of Champions a bit later, but, we got involved with that. We helped found that and set it up to get going. And, we used the jersey, which is behind me. And, we've done a lot of things. And so I think that it's all came around. My son's in the industry, he's 27 years old, we're going to be soon 28 years old, and he's in the industry. And I got my wife's a nurse, my daughter's a nurse. So they're into the feeling kind of side. And I'm like going, you know what? I want to make sure that my kids are safe. I want to make sure that somebody makes a difference. And if it's not me, someone else. And I have a bunch of theories. And one of my theories is either put up or shut up. Either put up and do something about it, or you shut up. And I'm not necessarily a guy that shuts up. And, I want to make sure that I want to do the right things. And so I put a lot of effort into it. I put a lot of passion into it. For those that know me, that's what I do. I talk it all the time, but it's not my day job, but I am responsible for a lot of people. And, we say, I'm now, I'm president of Gillam, part owner, and, I've come up with a lot of different things. And one of the things we say all the time is nothing you do on this site is more important than going home safe to your family and loved ones. And we have a big 4x4 sign that we put at minimum one on a job site. It's reinforced through everything. It's just become, I guess, a passion. And that's over time, I've realized that I do have the power to sway people and make a difference, and I think that that's why I've been doing it. It's because it's leveraging. Previously I was chairman of the Toronto Construction Association, and, I helped do that, bring it to the Toronto Construction Association and elevate safety. Every meeting now starts off with a safety moment. Every meeting at the OGCA starts off with a safety moment. Everyone at Gillam Group here, we start off with a safety moment. It's all part of it. And once you start teaching that, and then people get with the program, they realize that safety is not a bad word, and we need to report and deal with issues and not hide these issues. I think that's part of it. And so it becomes a conversation. And in my time doing the OGCA Safety Committee, we moved from a exclusionary bunch of people that don't share stuff, that's my competitive advantage, is my safety program, to saying, I'll give you my safety program. And we're talking about large contractors, national, we're talking about Elliston, PCL, Bird, Alberici, and everybody said, I'll give you whatever I have. Yeah. And then we said, you know what? Safety is not proprietary, and that's the way it should be. Yeah. And then I'll stop talking for a second there.
No, that was incredible. That I understand why you are who you are now. That was a very good background. The passion comes through. I have so many questions, but I got to start with this one. My background, 18 years old, labor and construction. A lot of people know that. I worked my way up into running a company, high-rise window installation, and then switched to software. Now we work with so many companies across North America. I will still say to date the industry is going through this safety adoption journey, right? Where are you in the spectrum of adopting and understanding safety? 10 years ago, safety was very different than it is today, and not every company understands and is doing safety the same way. And Craig, your mentality, the view you have on safety, what you're doing around safety is truly unique. Okay. My question to you is, what when I look at executives and leaders most of the companies out there, a lot of them, of course, say and care about safety, but the reality is, and it's not a good or a bad thing, it's just natural. They lose sleep at night over the schedule and whether they're going to make money or not. And that ends up becoming the focus of the business. But you have gone from project manager to senior project manager to VP to now president of Gillam with this mentality that is truly safety is everything.
Yep.
Not everything, of course. You have to operate your business, but it is front and center, and it's absolutely a priority to you. And you have become president of a large company. How do we get more people to think like you? Or where is the disconnect between the leaders that are not quite where you are now, and how do we bring them along to make it?
You do it. There's a number of ways through, for example, on the board, the OGCA, they've all heard me for over a dozen years at the board passionately talk about safety. When I bring up stuff and they buy in and they've gotten behind it, a lot of the leaders on the board are excellent and they've stepped up and they are doing the right thing. It's not just about sending your safety person, it's about coming out. I currently stepped down as chair of the League of Champions, and that's a few years ago. We set it up as its own independent organization. I'll talk about that later. But anyways, long story short, my predecessor right now is Harold Reinders, who has also stepped in as chair. He was my vice chair on the safety committee at OGCA. Because I'm now chairman of the OGCA, I decided to step down from the safety committee because I can't do everything, despite what I think I can. And he's been stepping in, and we have organized as the League of Champions a safety summit coming up next week not next week, the week after, is C-suite. We're going to hit the C-suites. It's bring your boss to work day and make sure get people there and bring people to leadership. We set up a panel so that we're going to talk about it with panels and give tips and tricks for people to get involved and engage. It doesn't have to dominate your business, but what it has to do is you have to be able to understand that having a safe company is a profitable company because everybody wants to come to work. Everybody feels valued, especially coming out of COVID. What people missed during COVID was human interaction. If you got somebody that cares for you and got your back, the loyalty that someone's going to have for you is much better than if you don't. So imagine, why do you like family? Well, the ones you like because they like you and you feel it. It's a warmth and it's a feeling. It's about that hug thing. And it's not necessarily touchy-feely, but it's about that kind of, instead of going, I don't care if it's whatever happens to you, go get injured, who cares? That's not what a family does. That's not what a parent does. That's not what I do. So why would you not think of it the same way about the people that are in your family? And, at Gillam, they're my family. Like they literally are. We do all sorts of stuff together. We have activities together. We have all sorts of cool things going on. And, we go to Jays games and axe throwings, and we've got football matches coming up, and we got beach volleyballs and, socials, etc. Well, extend that to the industry now. They're my family too. Why would I not want somebody? Nothing more important to me than making sure that we never see a construction accident on the news. Why? Because the news loves this stuff. They over-promote it, and it makes us look bad. Now, who's coming into the industry is young people. We need a whole bunch of people. We're desperate for good quality people. If everybody thinks their parents and the kids are all brainwashed by the news media into thinking that safety is an unsafe workplace or somewhere to get into, then you're now not feeding your industry with good people. So if you fix the safety, you get the people. And now that we've gotten a better role on safety, now you'll get better people. And you get more passionate people and people that care and that want to come into an environment that's not an old, the old school FU type of construction environment. It's not that way today. It's not. It's more about that family feel. And so I don't know if I quite answered everything, but that's what I think. That's why I believe C-suites are getting in the mode they realize it's good business sense to think about safety, not just because of the dollars and cents, but it's the human quotient.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, Harold Reinders, who took over, is the owner and CEO of Maple Reinders, which is one of the larger GCs in Canada, and is the chair of a safety league of champions, right? Like this is
And the OGCA.
and the OGC. This
He's
is
doing double duty just like I
Yep.
did, because 1 + 1 is 3. You get to leverage everything at the same time.
Yeah. And it's incredible that, again, not the background, but the ownership is buying into safety at a different level. And you're 100% right, Craig. It ties into the biggest issue, in my opinion, that we have in construction, which is we have a huge labor shortage in North America across the board. The kids coming out of high school are not choosing construction as their first choice a lot of the times. Me, speaking from experience going into construction, I felt like I was a second-rate citizen, and that there's a stigma around it, and there's a huge issue there. And then to top it all off, the PR around construction is not great. Dangerous, rough, tough, and all of that stuff. There's improvements we need to do, but it has improved dramatically, and we just have to get that out there. And so ownership getting more involved is huge. One other thing I would comment on about something you spoke of is it makes you money. So something that Rob and I did, we went to a job site in the US with one of the largest general contractors in the US. And we went on their site and we pulled sub-trades together. And we were there as a consultant for them. And we had all different walks of life as far as the subcontractors. Some that didn't speak any English, needed a translator. Some that were skilled labor, not skilled labor, 40 years experience, apprentice of 1 year. And the goal there was to determine, is safety actually working today? One of the issues that we see is safety has swung the pendulum so far to this compliance side that it becomes more of this checkbox to protect the business versus actually protect the worker. And so we were going there to be like, okay, is the actual pre-task plan or hazard assessment, this paperwork, are the workers in the field actually identifying that with disruption of complacency? Is it working? So we went through this incredible conversation, and I'm not going to talk about all the results, but one of the biggest results that we found that came out of that is we asked them, you work with multiple general contractors in your region. Tell us about these GCs and what safety is like with them. They said, okay, there's some that you have to sign a form to go to the bathroom, and everything is processed, and it's insane. The other one was like, there's a clear, which was similar to the company we were consulting for, there's a clear safety requirement, enforcement, and standard, and there's documentation and everything else, but there's clear safety as a priority. And then there's the third one where they say they care about safety. Everything they say and do after that is all about the schedule. And so we then asked them, we said, okay, great, love the analysis. What company actually gets their jobs done faster and on time? And they all stopped and thought, and they said, you know what? The companies that have a safety process and procedure in place are more likely to get done on time. They said the one thing they do know is the ones that ignore that and are just focused on the schedule are constantly doing rework, always disruption in the field, no communication, it's just chaos. And they'd much rather work on those other sites. And for the first time, I was like, you know what, it's so interesting, because when you think about the field level worker, safety is the one thing that actually ends up touching them, and that they can actually stop and think, create collaboration, and creates that conduit between the office and that trade worker. Nothing else really gets there. So anyways, that was a bit of a rant, but I love kind of what you're talking about. And Rob, I know you messaged me here. You've got some questions too, so dive in.
Craig, I'm kind of curious, the level that you're at, and we're seeing this trend across, I think, both Canada and the United States, is how much impact do you see on the company from a PR perspective when you have, let's say, more than negative events like accidents and incidents versus some of what we were just hinting at, this new movement for wellness for the workers? How much does that really impact, do you think, your company's reputation or just the industry in general from a reputation side of the equation, if that makes sense?
It does. It does. It affects both. I think first I got to look after my own house, right? Like at Gillam, That's the first thing, first and foremost. And that's why I said everybody knows, whether we have like every one of our safety professionals, every one of our senior leadership, every job site has a League of Champions jersey hanging there. And we talk about it at our orientations. And, I'm just going to maybe segue into the League of Champions for a second, just because I need to explain it. So League of Champions, an organization was founded in 2016. OGCA, we sat down, we're at an annual general meeting, and the four of us sat down and talked about it. And we created the League of Champions. And it was to create and talk about safety and safety culture. And we used this jersey behind me, which, of course, there's a bit of Canadiana there, but what's more Canadian than a hockey jersey? And, we thought, let's do this thing. And we use it as a visual imagery so you can talk about safety. And when it hangs up in our trailers or our offices, one's in our main boardroom. This is my own personal jersey. It's actually the prototype. And, it's right from the beginning. And so what we do is we ask people, we say, listen, the League of Champions stand for safety and safety culture. And we talk about advocacy. We want to talk about communications. But I want you to sign your name, your family name, something you normally put on a contract on the jersey. Then you're going to commit to the following. You're going to work safe every day, and you're going to make sure everybody beside you works safe, and you're going to promise that everybody goes home safe at the end of the day, the same way they came to their family and loved ones. That's it. That's a simple promise. Can you make that promise? And then you do, and you get them to commit it, and they sign the name. So it's a physical act. And then, I take the jersey and I go to events and talk about it with everyone else. And so we use that jersey as a lever to happen. And so when at Gillam, everybody's got it. I spread the jersey around. In the industry, we have a number of events. Our first week in May is coming up. Yesterday was the day of mourning, National Day of Mourning in Canada. And, we had a safety stand downs at every one of our job sites at 11. We all did a moment of silence in the office. We actually have a bell. And so when we ring the bell, it's usually about good news, but we brought everybody in the office and they all come and we collect. And then we gave a moment of silence and talked about, why we have fallen workers and people that are never coming back from their accidents. And, we talked about it because it's got to be top of mind. And then that sort of leads into next week, which is Safety Week. And so we're doing a whole big advocacy campaign. I take the entire week off for it. I do events, so I do nothing but safety. And I have events all across the province and all our job sites. Not all our job sites, but I got 8 major events. I got breakfasts and lunches, all the workers coming in. We hand out shirts, Gillam shirts, of course, to other trade. If somebody else is nearby, I've had competitors join our safety events. I avoid industry, I avoid local politicians, and we talk about how important safety is. And so we do that at all our job sites. We promote it, and then we celebrate it, and the speeches are short. It's all about the simple message. And what we do is, so we do that. Now we're trying to spread. We're trying to spread what we're doing at Gillam to other companies, other trades, other organizations, other people. We have IHSA and Industrial Safety Association, Industrial Industrial Safety Health Association. And so we've got a number of different things that we do, and they come out, they're going to be at the events, and we tie the League of Champions. Now we're starting to not just affect our sphere, now we're affecting all these trade spheres that are tied into us. And some of those are now members of the League of Champions and other things. And we're trying to make it so it's a little more infectious, a little bit more things. We talk about safety events. Originally, I used to sit on the U.S. construction safety. It's called Safety Week, constructionsafetyweek.com. And, every year there's a theme. I used to be the only Canadian exec on the original exec, back when I used to work for Walsh. And, this year's is Plan, Own, Commit. That's the slogan, and we're trying to drive that in. So now we're pushing that out. We're doing social media. Now you're tying to a wider audience. You're talking about these events. People say, how do I get involved in these? And so now you're talking about positive, good things. And so what you're trying to do, I'm trying to do on a small scale, spread it out, give ideas, give other people ideas and things that they want to go. So that to me is a positive reputation. That's what you say. Gabe, you gave me some great compliments. Thank you much for that. And that's a positive spin. I never want to have to talk about the accidents that we've had. I've been fortunate enough to never have those conversations. And, I certainly don't ever want to have those conversations, but that's the part when you do have, that's a negative connotation. So I want to stay away from those. So by staying away from those, I want to be positive. I want to talk about the positive things. I want to look and associate with good companies. I want to talk about safety, and I want to push it out, the wider message. And so that's why the League of Champions got created, to allow that to help spread and to spread the message. I can tell you, I've been doing it now since 2016. So 2017, initial did some talks. We went into schools, post-secondary. I've been in front of 400 or 500 students. They're all ready to come in as construction management people and tradespeople. And they come in the industry and we talk about why they have the right to refuse work. And they go, what? I have a right to refuse work? And I go, yeah, you have a right to refuse work. And we stand up there and explain why you have a right to refuse work and why you should tell your employer that if you're telling you to do something unsafe and you're an apprentice electrician, you're on the live end. Yeah, no, find another job because you don't need to be dead. Like seriously. So I think the way you control the negative, Rob, is by controlling the positive and by making sure that you push the message out to everyone and that everybody's got a duty and a voice to say. So, and then internally at Gillam, I know I'm ranting here, but we've got a program called Don't Walk By. So DWB, and it's, a QR code, you scan it, and if you walk by something and you don't do anything about it, that's a shame. Tell us that you have a problem. Tell us that you fixed it. You put the guardrail back, but tell us you did it. And then I put everybody's name into draws and we draw gift cards and we give prizes out every week to people for their suggestions. And that's just, for us, that's just table stakes. Let's make sure we can fix our industry, because if we all look after each other, we're all going home safe. That's straight up how it's going to happen.
Yeah, and like you said at the beginning, tying it to the why behind safety, that mutual contract. A lot of people, you go to work and you forget, you become complacent, right? So you forget about what's important. And like you said, there's nothing more important than you going home safe. There's nothing more important on this job site than you getting home to your family or your loved ones or whatever else it is. Craig, love what you're saying, but the reality around construction is not ideally every single person that comes into construction is going to come through your network. Everyone that
Correct.
believes the same way as you, and that would be great. But the reality is there is no gateway into construction right now, and the safer the what determines how your safety training is going to be or how safe you are in construction will determine what company you work for. And not everyone is at that same place, right? If you were to hire somebody to come do a renovation on your house today, good chance they're going to come with no safety program because that industry is a little bit further behind than the rest. What is slowing us down or preventing us from moving all these companies to where you are today? What's the biggest thing that is slowing safety down from progressing faster? What's the biggest barrier right now in your
Good
mind?
question. I will say enforcement has part of it. I mean, part of the I will say the advocacy I've been doing for a number of years with the ministry is saying, quit focusing on the big construction sites just because they have 100 people. Go to the small jobs that have only the mom and pops, or where they're all independent workers. Go talk to them because they feed into bigger companies afterwards. And they come with bad habits. Where they don't tie off or something. Go talk to those people about stuff. And that's why the Ministry of Labor here in Ontario has put a focus on residential construction, realizing that a lot of incidents and accidents, they look at it. And if you do the data, and that's what I said, that the CPO's office is doing a data crunch for the last 10 years on what happened and why it happened and where they need to do it. And they're looking at demographics, they're looking at all that sort of stuff and trying to figure out, was it, the time of day? What was the activity? Like they're looking at that to try and figure out where's the biggest bang of buck to make a change. And right now, I already done my data analysis because I read every single labor management report comes out and do the analysis. And that is about worker and worker complacency. It's about the guy that decides, or the girl, or the person that wants to go up and walk the top of a rail 2 stories high to put a truss up with no fall protection, just because they can move around. And they get up there with running shoes. I get wearing running shoes when you're walking on dangerous spaces, but when you get back down to the ground, put your boots on. Those are the kinds of things that are dangerous acts that they carried forward because they got away with it for 10 times.
So tell me more about that survey, the data that you found. I believe, like I think I said earlier, safety has to start switching back to the field level worker. And it's not just, hey, here, we're going to give you everything that you could possibly ever need to work safe. The accountability is needed. They're accountable for their own safety. They need to understand what that means and how to be safe. But if it doesn't register for the person in the field that is about to do that task, It doesn't matter about all the reporting, about all the controls we have in place. It doesn't matter about anything if upstairs it's not registering before they do that task. So what were you finding from this data? Let's pull on that thread a little bit more and
For
talk.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to give you a context. I think in the last 10 years, construction companies have elevated their game, and most generals from smallish to medium to large all have safety programs in place and understand the importance of safety. Some of the smaller independent ones, not so much. And some of the ones that are just looking to make a quick buck and get out, those ones are maybe not so much. But a lot of people, the bar has changed. In Ontario, right now, the general, it's called Schedule 1 employers. It's a WSA program in Ontario. Schedule 1 employers, the average LTI, lost time injury, is less for construction than the average for the last 4 to 5 years now. That's phenomenal when you think about it.
It's amazing.
Like that's somebody, and then if you talk about different people like OGCA, they're half of the average. And you talk about League of Champions members, they're a quarter of that average. And so these are the kinds of things that make a difference. Now, the other side of the coin is these workers, they're not getting it as much. And they need to understand that they have their safety in their own hands, literally. And they need to plan the work. You talked about it before, pre-hazard assessment. They need to do pre-hazard assessments truly, and not a box ticking one that they took a pre-printed program and just ticked it and said, and signed it and never read it. They actually make it the list themselves and say, here's what I needed to do. Here's the safety precautions I need to take. Here's what could happen when it goes wrong. And if they do the situation, I call it the situational awareness game, where they say, what's the worst that can happen? Right? And then plan for it. And now they've got it in their head. They got a map. Should this happen, I'll do this. Should this happen, I'll do this. And so we've got to get that training down to the worker level. And I think it starts at the apprenticeship programs. I think that's for unions and even for the trades. But for the non-trades, it's when a new worker comes into the workforce, they need a 1 to 2 day orientation before they step foot on a job site. They need to be properly trained. And there's new programs in BC. There's new programs in Alberta. There's a new one in Ontario. And I know there's other ones in the East Coast of Canada where you come in and get that minimum training, and it's an online test, like, the one in Ontario that IHSA has, 18 modules. Every new worker needs to have it. Every new worker has to have it. I think that's important, and you identify that in new workers. So I think you just got to get to the front end to understand that, we can get into the high schools. We've got a speakers bureau that we're forming. I've been involved with other ones, but we're forming at the League of Champions to go in and talk to the high school kids and the college kids and say, guys, you need to understand that, whether you're a journeyman or your apprentice, you need to work safe. So I think it's the education side that we need to work on. And I think that management and, people in this industry can help out. I mean, that's what a lot of the programs do. Gabe, your program has safety tips and how to get things done. It's not just a box checking organization. It's you've got a tool that's a beneficial tool.
Do you feel that trade workers in the field view the safety documentation or the forms that they fill out, whatever the name of the form is, are they connecting that as a form for themselves, or they feel like they're doing it for the company and it's to protect the company, not to protect themselves?
I think they still think it's to protect the company. When it's not, it's to bring awareness to an issue. It's to both. Like, why can't you have a win-win and a win? You can fill out the forms, protect the company so that you're following your procedures, whether it be core or ISO or whatever program you follow. And, you've done what you've done, and then you can have an audit trail that you've done it. The worker's been done it. And then when you catch them doing it, you say, but you went through this. You literally before 15 minutes ago, you said you wouldn't do what you're doing. Why are you doing it? And now you get to say, hey, listen, let's talk about this. And I think that's part of it. So I think, if you can educate people on the why and get the how right, it'll be perfect. And I think that's where, technology is coming waves. What worker doesn't walk around with one of these? And, we put up QR codes for training. We've got scissor lift training, the Access Association of Canada. I've been out and spoken at their AGM and talking about safety. They've come out with some new guidelines that are all QR codes. You get hard hat stickers. You can put them on your hard hat. You can put them on your wall. and they say, these are the safe operating guidelines for scissor lift. This is safe something for snorkel lifts. And here's a 1-page refresher. Just review it. Literally, just review it before you go up and decide, that you're going to be 40 feet in the air and not doing something right, or you're unsure. And that to me is the right direction. We need to provide the tools and the training. And I don't mean 3 days of training, because quite frankly, people yawn at that. You need to have small, short bites that get focused. They understand what they're doing at the task at hand. They can have a refresher and off they go. That's it. Oh shit, I forgot. Step 5. Yeah, I better go get that. I better do that. I was at a job site the other day, maybe a month ago. And, the guy set up a snorkel lift and they were tied off. Everything was good. And I'm like, whoa, problem. Where's your safety zone? You haven't delineated anything out here. Stop. Bring it down. I said, let's go get some cones. My staff, we went out, we grabbed some tape, we had cones. Okay, now you have a safety delineation zone. No one's going to walk underneath your boom. You're working up above. You're not wearing a tether. So, your tool could fall and smack somebody on the head or the shoulder and hurt them. It's easy. It's just simple little things that they forgot that step. Yet it was in their pre-hazard assessment. They just forgot that because they moved to a new area.
Which, as you're describing that situation, I'm thinking of my career and thinking of 4 different incidents that actually happened where somebody dropped a tool on somebody working below them, somebody walking through a control zone. Like it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Craig, something you said made me really think. One of the areas of focus I have down here in the States is really diving more. I don't want to say it's the mental health side of things. It's the mental fitness side of things, of those workers that you're just talking about. What was going on in their head at that time? What did they bring to work that maybe could have been that distraction at any of the incidents that we're just talking about? Are you hearing much talk in your circles about when workers are clearly not following what they wrote on paper? What is that mental thing going on inside of where is that distraction point to address that to improve their safety performance?
You just hit on one of my favorite topics. We created a program, and it's called the 4 Pillars of Fit for Duty. And the 4 pillars are fit for duty. You have to have, first off, you have to have your mental acuity, right? You got to have mental. You have to have emotional, and they're not the same. Because you could be right. You could have an emotional issue. Someone just died. Somebody got hurt. Your daughter's getting married. Are you really thinking about it tomorrow? They're getting married tomorrow. Then you have to have your physical competency. Okay, you have to physically be able to do the work. If there's bending, motion, eyes, neck, if you got a neck issue, you got to be able to look up, like whatever. You got to have the physical, and the 4th one is you got to have the competency. Like I could have all those things, but if I don't know how to weld competently, then I'm not fit for duty to do welding. And when you're talking the mental stuff, like people have distractions. They may have found out that they have ADHD, like they don't know it yet. I know of a couple people that in their adulthood, they got diagnosed for something they've had for a long time. And then once they got a little bit of drugs, their focus became clear, right? And that was just an undiagnosed issue. So, it's your mental, it's your emotional, it's your physical, and your competency. Those are the 4 pillars. And I think if you can show up and have those things, then that's a big deal. And so asking people, are you mentally fit today to come to site and work in a high-paced environment? Not every task is dangerous, but they can be. And if you're not paying attention and focused, then you are. So Rob, you're spot on that there are issues there that can cause accidents. And, first week in May, as you know, is the safety week, but it's also mental health week, right? It's National Mental Health Week across both countries. And so it's one of those things that, you can use as toolbox talks. And, I've had mental health professionals come out and give speeches and talk to people. And I thought, that we did one event there last year where we had this mental health professional come out and talk about it. And it was, it's a male dominant society. We talked about it before. And if I can make this safer, I think we're going to bring more other males other than male to the workforce, right? We get rid of some of that stigma stuff. And if you make it safer, more of a family feel, because that's just how mentally, other genders than male are. And they tend to be that way. And so if we can do that, I think it's going to be great. And so she come out and she talked, and I thought everybody was going to leave. They actually got engaged, and they're asking questions and putting up hands. And I'm like going, wow, I was blown away. And that's because, we're now starting to talk about the issues that people have.
We've spent, in preparation for Mental Health Week in May and stuff, we've interviewed quite a few advocates in construction that are focused on mental health, mental fitness. And one of I think the core common thread across them all is just ask the question, create the conversation. How are you doing today? How are you actually doing? Is everything okay? And could be simple, right? And it could save lives, because that's what we're talking about here with mental fitness, mental health, is people are killing themselves by the thousands right now in the industry as well, not to mention the incidents that could be caused from them working on job sites that they're not mentally there, they're not present. And I think we've all been there. I've been there, working in the field, and life gets hard.
Well, and it's not always diagnosed. I mean, I'll give you a personal story. When it's too close, sometimes you don't see it. You don't see it. My wife was a geriatric nurse for 36 years. Unbeknownst to me, she got PTSD back at the end of COVID, and I didn't recognize it. I didn't see the signs because her mood changed, and just a little bit,
Right.
little bit, and I didn't see it. But if somebody else was asking her, "What's wrong with Lisa?" Like I didn't see her. Like I saw her a month ago, but she's different now. And and again, it's very, very difficult. And so your mental state, I mean, it just got too much. I mean, you're dealing with the COVID environment and all the people dying in these old age homes, and it's just so much death, and losing her mom at the same time, and an aunt, and blah, blah. It just came so much that it was a thing. And I see that in our workforce, and I've seen it in our workforce where you say, listen, I don't think this person is capable today of focusing on the task that they have at hand. And I think we need to reassign them to another task or ask them to go home and get some stuff. And I've literally asked people to do it. And afterwards they came back and said, because they were mad at the time, because they don't see the forest for the trees. They just get mad. And then came back and you go, oh my God, I am so glad you actually forced me to take time off, because I was losing it. I literally was losing it, but didn't realize I was losing it.
Yeah, you get
And
into this repetitive zone, and you're just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's
And
dangerous.
it's not a bad word. Mental health is not. It's not. It's health. It's health. It's not. It's not. You're not crazy, cuckoo. It's none of that stuff. It's just that you're not in the right headspace to be doing what you need to be doing, and you need to go get that either looked at, talk with somebody, talk it out, find a program. We've set up a MedCore that with all our staff to have an outlet to talk to people. So we have a 24-hour helpline. All those things are avenues for people just to reach out and do something about it.
It's actually fairly straightforward, just unexplored. And if you give it relative examples, like if I were to run nonstop for an entire day, my body would be very tired and start to shut down. When you think about, and I've been through this myself, and I struggle with aspects of mental health around OCD and stuff. You don't shut your brain off. Your brain, like for me, sometimes my brain is just constantly going, obsessing over things, and it's firing all the time. And it doesn't shut off, does not shut off. And so if anybody does this for an extended period of time, it's just like any other part of your body or a machinery. Everything needs maintenance, everything needs downtime, everything needs to repair and recharge. With smartphones, social media, all of this stuff surrounding us, our brains are just constantly in this, whether it's fight or flight mode or whatever it may be, it's just not natural. And then we end up breaking, and nobody sees the signs because a lot of the times we're all in the same state together, or you have the blinders on, or, oh, I don't want to ask that question because I don't want to know what the answer is going to be. And they don't know how to deal with it, and it's just messy and scary. But you're right. You got to stop sometimes, break that cycle, recharge, come back. And we got to figure out ways to identify these things. Because the person doing it most of the time won't identify it. The person that's in that state won't ask for help, and they have trouble identifying the state that they're in because, like you said, Craig, you were close to it. That's being a husband. The person themselves is even closer. It's just that it's even less. You don't see this stuff happening to yourself at all. Just like weight loss or weight gain or whatever it may be, you don't notice it.
Yeah,
And
it comes on gradual, and then there could be a breaking point. It's tough.
Yeah, we were talking to a site superintendent that turned into a safety professional about a month ago. It is an incredible conversation because site superintendents, in my opinion, are the most important job in construction from my perspective. And also, in my perspective, have probably the most stressful job in construction as well. They typically struggle with a work-life balance because the job is so demanding constantly all the time. They a lot of them don't end up retiring. They have it's a very tough world, and this individual described to us that exactly that, constantly going. Remote job sites would be gone for like 3 weeks at a time, back for a couple days, gone again, and one day he just broke driving home, just completely broke. And if you looked on the outside and looked at all the like all of the signs, you'd be like, yeah, that's going to happen. It's just not if, it's when. And it happened. And then he changed his life to be more of an advocate for this stuff. And he's a very rare that you see a superintendent turn safety, and then safety that's very focused on the mental health aspect of it, where he walks around job sites asking these individuals, having those conversations. I just thought it was very powerful because a lot of times supers are also viewed as the toughest people in the industry. But that has nothing to do with toughness.
It's not, and that's the thing. And so, yeah, I think big picture wise, I mean, we're an industry that's adaptive, and I think we're slow to adopt technology. That you probably understand, but what, we're getting there, and I think there are tools to help us. I think there's tools to make life easy, to make sure that the administrative burden is not there, to take some of that pressure off. The importance of having to do those checks and balances to make sure that everybody does go home safe. I don't know that anybody says that I would know, anybody I know would say, listen, I'm going to make more profit and this person's going to get hurt or dead. I don't think that's how people think. They don't do it consciously. They may do it a bit subconsciously because they're not aware. And so we're getting much better than that. There used to be people like that, when you built these old buildings and, only 8 people died. That was a good job.
That's within our tolerance.
That's within our tolerance. We were thinking it was going to be 25, but you know what? It was only 8. And if you go back to like the big mega projects like the Hoover Dam or, the Golden Gate Bridge and all that stuff, like the Golden Bridge, they came through and he came and made safety. That safety nets came from there. Like they started saving people because they decided, I don't want all these people to die. So somebody made a stand and said, you know what? I'm going to do something different about it because today I'm going to make a difference and try and change the world. And you can only change it a bit at a time and then hope everybody else buys in and off you go.
I think for the most part, it's not that humans ever are trying to do the wrong thing. It's coming from an aspect, you don't know what you don't know. I was, before I started Salus, maybe 2 years before that, I really started to understand safety. I went through that adoption curve myself as a leader. Before that, we had tons of incidents, right? That I had one where I showed up on a job site, somebody fell off a ladder. The police said the 21-year-old had died. Luckily, he did not die. And there was somebody else holding the ladder, and WorkSafe was there. And there was an investigation, but nothing changed in our business after that because we didn't have any process or documentation at that time. It's not that I wanted that to happen again to anyone in our business. And I asked WorkSafe, what could we do differently? But it was just not there. It wasn't there. So we just continued to do the same thing, be a little bit more aware with ladders, make sure somebody doesn't go get something from the truck while somebody goes up, but it was no process, procedures, no paperwork before, nothing. And so that, I think, is the biggest issue, is that it's just, you don't know what you don't know. You can't change what you don't know, the problem that you have.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
I say that all the time, and I say it a different variation on that one as well, is I can't fix what I don't know is broken. So got to report those incidents, accidents, the near misses. Anything. You know what? I've always said, people, you're never going to get, I'm going to use crass here. Yeah, you're never going to get in shit for telling me something that went wrong. You're only going to get in shit if you don't tell me. That's the bottom line. You know what? Because there's the pyramid, there's a hierarchy of controls, there's a whole bunch of tools that we can use. And the more things you know about, the more things you can take. There's a trend happening. There's a trend happening. Let's fix that. Whether it be ladders, we're putting a ladder push on, and I'm advocating stairs and platform ladders. I'm saying, I don't want to see a ladder on a job site. Like, let's find a way to get rid of it.
Right.
Because I look at what the incident, going down a ladder, they twist their ankle, fall backwards, went down the ladder, slid, slipped, fall. And you know what, we're trying to work off something. And how do you work off something with one hand? Because you're supposed to have 3-point contact. You can't. We know you're lifting up. So let's just find a way to eliminate the hazard. That's the first easiest thing to do. Just eliminate it. So.
Yeah, it's the status quo of what this is how we've always done it. But Craig, this is the longest we've gone, so we got to wrap it now. But this was
I'm verbose. Eh?
No, it's good conversation. I love where your head's at. Keep leading the industry in the direction it needs to go. Keep pushing safety forward, Craig. You're a huge advocate and a leader on all fronts, and you're inspiring. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and Rob and Gabe. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully, we do it. I will say just one last final thing. I don't know if you noticed where that is.
Yeah, there you go.
So I got married in BC in Whistler, so and I go back all the time.
Yeah, when the Leafs play the Canucks, come out. We'll go to a game.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I'm down for that.
Perfect. Okay,
awesome.
Over to you, Rob.
All right, guys. Amazing conversation. Craig, thank you again today for joining us. Appreciate your wisdom, the nuggets that you share. Thank you so much for what you do for the industry, sir. Appreciate you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, Gabe. It's been awesome. Appreciate you joining me as usual. This is all the time we've got for today, so we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Frontline Focus Podcast, powered by Salus. If you enjoyed this episode, then please subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Or better yet, leave us a comment on our social media platforms to let us hear your thoughts about this conversation. Until next time, keep moving safety forward.